boys and girls, it's Miss Bryn. I wanted to show you some of the plants that I have at my house. This plant used to be in our classroom. It's called an aloe plant, and I brought it to my house so it could still get water while we have to stay at our homes. I also have some beautiful yellow flowers. These are called daffodils, and they have really pretty yellow petals. This part right here that has color on the flower is called the petal. And that's what we're going to be talking about this week. I brought you a book that's all about different kinds of flowers. This is a red rose on the front cover. Remember that the front cover is the front of the book that has the name of the book or the title and the name of the person that wrote the words or the author. The person who wrote the words in this book is named Arnold Lobel. Does anybody remember what this tall, skinny part of the book is called right here? Yeah, you're right. It's the spine. The spine. And what about this part right here? Does anybody remember that? Yeah, you're right. This part is called the back cover. So if we go back to the front cover, the name of this book is called The Rose in My Garden. And it's one of those books that keeps repeating the same thing. So if you remember the words, you can say them along with me at your house. Remember, I will always show you the pictures, and I'll make sure that you can see them even when you're at your house. This is the rose in my garden. There it is, right there. This is the bee that sleeps on the rose in my garden. Can you see the bee on the flower right there? There it is, sleeping on the petals. These are the hollyhocks high above the ground that give shade to the bee that sleeps on the rose in my garden. Can you see the purple petals on the hollyhock? There they are right there. And there's our bee sleeping on the rose in the garden. These are the marigolds, orange and round, that stand by the hollyhocks high above the ground, that give shade to the bee that sleeps on the rose in my garden. These are the zinnias, straight in a row, that grow near the marigolds, orange and round, that stand by the hollyhocks high above the ground, that give shade to the bee that sleeps on the rose in my garden. I hope you guys are saying the in my garden part at home too. These are the daisies, white as the snow, that border the zinnias straight in a row, that grow near the marigolds, orange and round, that stand by the hollyhocks high above the ground, that give shade to the bee that sleeps on the rose in my garden. Good job. These are the bluebells with petals like lace that shelter the daisies as white as snow, that border the zinnias straight in a row, that grow near the marigolds, orange and round, that stand by the hollyhocks high above the ground, that give shade to the bee that sleeps on the rose in my garden. These are the lilies of elegant grace that lean toward the bluebells with petals like lace, that shelter the daisies as white as the snow, that border the zinnias straight in a row, that grow near the marigolds, orange on the ground, that stand by the hollyhocks high above the ground, that give shade to the bee that sleeps on the rose in my garden. Very nice job. Ooh, now we have an animal along with all our flowers. This is the field mouse, shaking in fear, that hides from the sunflowers, tallest of all, that rise by the tulips, sturdy and tall, that circle the pansies placed in a clump, that crowd all the peonies pleasingly plump, that are close to the lilies of elegant grace, that lean toward the bluebells with petals like lace, that shelter the daisies as white as the snow, that border the zinnias straight in a row, that grow near the marigolds orange and round, that stand by the hollyhocks high above the ground, that give shade to the bee that sleeps on the rose in my garden. Boys and girls, we have so many flowers. We have to look really carefully for our bee sleeping on the rose. There's the field mouse. If you look closely, can you see the bee? Do you see where it is? It's right up here, sleeping on the rose. I wonder what's going to happen next when I turn the page. Let's see. Oh my goodness. This is the cat with the tattered ear that chases the field mouse, shaking with fear. Cats like to chase mice. Uh-oh. Here's our little field mouse going running. Turn the page. He's chasing the field mouse that shudders with fear, that shudders the sunflowers tallest of all, that shivers the tulips sturdy and tall, that quivers the pansies placed in a clump, that pushes the peonies pleasingly plump, that startles the lilies of elegant grace, that shatters the bluebells with petals like lace, that scatters the daisies as white as the snow, that rattles the zinnias straight in a row, that mangles the marigolds orange and round, that tangles the hollyhocks high above the ground, that gives shade to the bee. Look at the bee's face. How do you think that bee might feel? Eyes are big. It looks like they might be a little bit surprised. What's going to happen next? The bee that wakes up on the rose in my garden. That cat woke up the bee. Where did the bee go? Yeah, you're right. It's right on the cat's nose. This is the rose in my garden. There's the rose, and there's all of its beautiful red, that's right, petals. All of its petals. Now we're at the back cover, so that means that the book is all done. That's the end. Thanks for listening to that book, boys and girls.